Assalamu alaikum. I'm still Joshua Saddam. And yes, you are still watching Deen Talk. Our last segment, I know a lot of people are tuning in. And by the way, share this. Once you finish listening, share it to some friends and men and women and people around the globe so that they can listen to this and so that they can learn. Now, I'm going to keep a conversation going that might be somewhat controversial, but yet I think it needs to be talked about. And that was earlier in the conversation, you mentioned about when we first started about being unapologetically a Muslim woman, that had at least two audiences. One was internally within the Muslim community, and one is externally. And then we just said that maybe sometimes things are a cultural difference as far as women feeling powerful or not. So I want to talk about that at least for a few minutes because I think there's something there. I think definitely within the Muslim community, there are classes that I've been to where the imam and the scholars are teaching Muslims about their belief of the correct interpretation of being a Muslim woman, because what's being put out there is that it should be, the quiet, reserved, let the men handle things, and they're saying no, Muslims should be out there. They're mentioning Khadija and others, and so sometimes it's a religious issue, and then sometimes it is a cultural issue. So I wanted to just know if we can talk about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things you had brought up, Khadija radiallahu anha, and I think it's important not to just bring her up, but let's point out a few things. Like Khadija radiallahu anha was a businesswoman, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam worked for her. So having this type of relationship where the woman makes more money, or the woman is, a leader in the community or a leader in business, is like our tradition. It is our tradition. So it's not, or a woman's older than her spouse. So this is not something that's new. You hear about it now like, oh, this is so strange. No, this is how our religion began. So I think it's important to not only just mention Khadija radiallahu anha, but let's make sure everybody understands who specifically we're talking about, and some of those very strong points.
We have some listeners out there who are not Muslim, who are hearing these names and like, what? Who? So yes, it's glad that you brought that up.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like we have so many examples. It is part of our narrative and part of our prophetic tradition to have strong women and strong Muslim women. And for us to embrace that and remember that is key at this point. If we're ever going to move forward and also try to take away those cultural stereotypes and misunderstandings of the religion, then we need to really remember that and bring that back.
You said a key word there, and I don't want to, if other people had comments that you wanted to say on that thing about how much of it is religious, how much of it is cultural, please still bring that. But she just said a word that I wanted to highlight: moving forward, right? This whole concept of we're not there yet, we're behind, we're backwards, is something that people are always trying to negotiate with, and that's why they come up with these terms progressive and this and that, because and so sometimes moving forward has an image to it. Some people might be watching the screen and determine that some of the sisters sitting here are moving forward and some of them sisters here are just stuck, right? So what does that mean when people say moving forward, and what is moving forward for Muslim women or women in general in the American context? What does that mean to you? So you can touch on that, or you can still talk about but I didn't want to miss that concept of moving forward.
Sure, I agree with the sister here.
Jia,
who said that it is of our tradition that comes from strong women leaders. We come from that, and I come from that as well. My family came to Islam through the Nation of Islam, and we were always taught that women were protected and whatnot. But in my experience, I didn't see that women's voices were muddled. And I know that there was that tradition, but I was also encouraged by my mother and my father, who would never proclaim to be feminists, but always proclaimed Islam, and would say that it was important for me to be strong, and for my sisters to be strong, and for my brothers to be strong and respect women's voices. So I do agree with you. I think that saying that we are progressive or coming to our own, it does delineate or paint a picture that something is changing. And I think that it hasn't necessarily changed. It may be just coming forth to a stronger light, and people are seeing it more so than they have because of our mixed society, because we are living in a community with not just Muslims. So maybe non-Muslims are seeing what they think of is progressive, or women who are leading. But we know this is our tradition, and we've seen this before.
I hope my listeners know that I'm intentionally not bringing up issues as I hear, because I only got like 10 minutes left, and this is like a topic that we could have 6 shows on when we start talking about women in Islam, women in America, the role of women in society, the role of men in society, misogynistic views in government and religion, and how that, and I'm not bringing all that up because what I'm really trying to focus on is, in this last 8 minutes we have in the show, is that we just witnessed. I mean, when I say witness, we were all part of history. Whether you were there in D.C. or somewhere else in the country or the world, or whether you were just watching on TV, you witnessed history. And I think that says a lot. It could be the turning point of something when we talk about women empowerment. I just took a class on feminism in Islam, and there's people that don't even agree with that term. I heard somebody say it over here. Some people say, no, I'm not a feminist, I'm a womanist. And what does that mean? Because some people, when they say feminist, they mean something else. And people might not want to be associated with that, might not want to be affiliated with that. I'm not going to that march, but I'll go to the womanist march or whatever.
Yeah.
So is there a lot of work that we have to do to kind of solidify this movement so that we don't filter out? Like, where is this movement and this march going to take us? Or are we just going to say, oh, it's the biggest march in history? What were the next steps supposed to be? What do you want the next steps supposed to be? So I'm gonna start with them. I want to end with you on this one, because since you were one of the main organizers, or in that group in the war room, you can tell us what maybe it was. But from people who were attending and seeing it from the outside, where do you expect this to go?
Well, definitely after the march, there's been momentum. And even the Women's March, on their website, they've put out all the actions that we need to take within the next 100 days, listing them all down every day. They're sending emails. This is what you need to do. This is the next step to take. And as a group, amongst ourselves and within the groups, for example, in Make Space, last night we had a women's halaqah saying, brainstorming, what are we going to do? We made a list of the things that we need to do, whether it's politically oriented in terms of calling senators, congressmen, making sure, signing petitions, etc., marching, even huddling for more marches, or whether it's something as small as just reaching out to more people, trying to get to know your neighbors, talking to people, making a YouTube video, sitting in a coffee shop and putting up a sign saying,
And she's
"Meet
saying
a Muslim."
she's saying small things, but we learned in the show, you don't have to be a big thing to start. It's just a little snowball, and then it turns into this big thing going down a hill. Anybody else? What do you expect to
I
go
mean,
from
just that very point, that don't be afraid to do the small things. Sometimes we have these grandiose ideas and we think that the small things don't matter, but what we did learn from the march is that it was the collective of many small actions that made a difference. So just to continue every day, we check the dailyaction.org to see what I can do, and it's a little bit calling up.
Say that again. Where should
Is it dailyaction.org? Is that what the
There's
organization-
dailyaction.org,
Yeah.
there's Moms Rising, there's the Women's March itself.
And that's
sending-
Womensmarch.com.
Okay.
And you sign up and they'll send you a list of what needs to be done, what's happening, especially after the march, there was the whole immigration issue coming up.
to move it
And
forward.
so more marches, more calling senators.
The
and-
work continues.
Yes,
Yes.
Work continues.
and it's not. It just goes beyond the political and more grassroots community type of work of us really reaching out and really knowing that you can make a difference, whether it's a small thing or a big thing. Everyone should do something.
And before I get your input, I want to on this point of the work continues. You can't just become an activist. I mean, you can start working on some things, but the type of leadership that we saw in this Women's March was there because people were in the fight for a long time, doing things in small groups in the local community, this and that, so that when this issue came, they were there, they were ready. When you're training for martial arts, you're training all the time, for when something may happen, right? You can't just walk around and then maybe one day you'll be able to block something, right? So this type of ongoing work that needs to be done is very important. So these small things that our panelists are giving you, make sure you keep doing in the meantime. Yes.
So I just think that it's important to realize that, you know, this was, as I said before, a very much needed event that occurred, and I think it's important that we build on that momentum, but also recognize that everyone is going to be doing things differently. So as long as you're doing what's in your power, as long as we're not judging, hey, why don't you come up to every, you know, protest that I go to, or anything like that, we need to support each other, and the fact that so many of us have been motivated to take action is what's important. And I mean, you know, with every cloud, there's a silver lining, to use that cliche. And in this case, I think we've had a lot of negativity, but the fact that we have all been mobilized and to continue to build on that in whatever way is comfortable or makes sense. Use your personal skills. Everyone's skills are different, but use those skills to make an impact and to continue to take action and make sure that the rights of women and all people, not just in the United States but around the world, are being fought for.
Now, Jamia, before I give you this, you know, last point to tell us what the plan was, like, you know, what did you want people to get from it, and what have you set up for people to take next steps? I want to pull out something that you said, because I was helping organize the content of a khutbah for the community with the imam. And he said, I want you to talk to this psychologist, this professional counselor, to see what are some things that we should add to this because of everything that's going on in the world. And she added exactly what you just said. She said, make sure that people don't put other people down for what they're doing. And why aren't you involved in this and that? She said, you know, listen to what people are doing and then encourage them. Because it's those small things. Maybe they're doing something small over there, but if you put them down, they might, you know, they might not want to join you later on, or they might even stop what they're doing. So it's this culture of support, culture of encouragement, and yes, a culture of empowerment that she was saying. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Could I add?
Sure.
Could I add something to that? Yesterday we had this meeting, as I mentioned before, and the whole platform was each person, each sister, can you suggest something that's based on what you can do? Or we weren't, you know, we weren't trying to like impose anything on anyone.
Just what can you do?
What can you do? And little things were like, maybe I need to talk more at work, or go out with my colleague, take my colleague out for lunch. You know, and each suggestion was based on each person's own ability. And we just wrote that down, and we're going to make a list and share it. And
sometimes people just need a hype person, you know? I'll just cheer you on. Yeah, I need that, you know? So, yeah, even if all you can do is just like, you know, I'm going to come to your events and I'm going to cheer you guys on. Yes, people need that we need to be encouraged. We need somebody saying, you're doing a good job. When people tell you you're doing a good job, it feels good. It makes you want to do some more. So if that's all you can do, write that down. It's something that you can do.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you just said, Brother Joshua, about the khutbah that you were putting together, because we can't all be activists. And I'm going to add a couple of other websites that folks can go to. You know, Empower, I'm sure our audience is mostly Muslim, so Empower is an organization that's M as in Mary, Power, that folks should Google, and it's a digital online organization. It's run by Mark Crane and Linda Sarsour and Destin Crane. I'm sorry, Destin Crane. Mark is going to kill me for getting his last name wrong. And it is an organization that allows Muslims to start these petitions. And it works similar to like a MoveOn.org, but start petitions about different issues of injustice. So, you know, that's an organization, MoveOn.org. It's another organization that I work for that's great to sign up for the website and get the emails and find out what the actions are in your area, because it's important that we know what's going on at the executive branch and here in Washington, D.C., but it's crucial that people all over the country and really all over the world, like you said, know what's going on in their neck of the woods so they can fight the good fight, because we can't be nationalistic. We can't just think, oh, if it's good for Americans and what America first and all this other kind of stuff. No, we want to engender peace around the world. That's what our Deen would want.
Yeah.
That's what our Deen would want. That's what Deen Talk would want. Why don't you give them that website one more time about the Women March?
Womensmarch.com.
Check it out, womensmarch.com. Learn what you can, do what you can, even if it's just to support and cheer others on. This was an amazing segment for me, an amazing show. I'm glad that you watched. I'm glad that you were here. Look up everything that we said, research it, and get involved. I'm Joshua Saddam, and you were watching Deen Talk.